Let's talk about how to pass the first round interview for Lloyds Bank. What's up guys, it's Mike from Job Ready English. If you don't already know me, I've been coaching graduates and professionals into top jobs at some of the world's most competitive companies since 2013. And today I'm going to be breaking down the first round interview process for Lloyds Bank. I'm going to go through a number of unique facts for Lloyds that you can use into your answer for why do you want to work for Lloyds Bank. I'm going to talk about the interview process, we're going to break down the most common questions, and also I'm going to take a deep dive into how to answer situational judgment questions with an example that I've picked out myself. So stick around to watch that later on in this video. Let's start off with 10 facts about Lloyds that you can use in your answer, why do you want to work for Lloyds? Fact number 1, Lloyds Banking Group achieved a statutory profit after tax of £5.5 billion, which is up 41% compared to 2022. Fact number 2, the group has 27 million customers and 2.2 million shareholders, making it the UK's largest digital bank. Fact number 3, Lloyds employs over 66,000 people, making it one of the largest employers in the UK. Fact number 4, the group's strategy focused on growth and diversification and aims to generate £1.5 billion of additional revenue by 2026. Fact number 5, approximately 85% of Lloyds staff are shareholders of the bank, which shows that they have a strong alignment of interest in how the bank does and making sure that they do well. Fact 6, since 2018, Lloyds has donated £120 million to its charitable foundations to help address complex social issues and opportunities. Fact 7, the group provided £2.7 billion of funding to the social housing sector in 2023 alone. Fact 8, Lloyds set a target to double the representation of senior colleagues with disabilities by 2025, the first of its kind commitment by a UK bank. Fact number 9, 40.1% of senior management roles were held by women in 2023. And finally, fact number 10, the group finances 1 in 8 ultra low emission vehicles on UK roads, contributing to the country's net zero ambitions. So what can you expect from the Lloyds video interview itself? Well, it's probably going to be a higher view style format where you're asked to answer questions on a one-way video. You can expect to be given 2 minutes to answer and 1.5 minutes to prepare. And in fact, a lot of people said that Lloyd's video interview was really in-depth, really quite particular, and they stressed preparation. Some people ended up doing a small presentation, some people ended up doing a small case study. It really does vary by the role, and one thing that I have observed with investment banks, particularly this year, is they're starting to make the application process a little bit more specific to the role that you are applying to. So really bear that in mind when you go through the process. You can expect 5 to 7 questions and the whole thing to take about 30 minutes. A really important thing that a lot of people mentioned is that the bank's questions are really based around their core values, and there are 5 of them. People first, we put people first to go further for customers. Bold, we are bold, we take action and innovate. Inclusive, we're inclusive to value everyone. Sustainable, we champion sustainability to care for our planet. Trust, we trust each other to achieve more together. So here's the 10 most common questions that we came across based upon our research of Lloyd's interview from candidates who've taken it in 2024. And at the end of this video, I really wanted to take a deep dive into situational judgment questions and answering them in the style of a video. It's something that a lot of people have brought up for Lloyd's that they found really challenging. So I picked out an example for you as well as a cheat sheet or an explanation that you can go through. More of this is dealt with in our course called SJT Sorted, which is contained in the Interview Success Secrets pack down in the link in the description below. Question number 1, why Lloyds? With 2 minutes to answer, this is quite a lot of time. It probably allows you up to 300 words in a script, and I would say you could include 5, if not 6 facts about Lloyds. What you'll notice is all of the facts that I gave you are incredibly specific, they're numbers orientated, and they're not generic. So it's not that Lloyds is a big bank or a prestigious bank or it'd be really good for advancing my career, which is the answer that I often hear when people answer why Lloyds. Take the time to read through Lloyds' annual report, to look at their quarterly statement, to look at their media and press releases if you're not so good at dealing with large documents, or just download a document, plug it into ChatGPT and ask it to summarize it for you. What you don't want to do is be given plain Jane generic answers, which are mostly based around you and why you think it would be a really good place for you to work. Question 2, why have you applied for this scheme? So whether you're a graduate watching this or a professional, one thing to bear in mind is just how important a job description is. Job descriptions aren't just something that you apply to once and throw away. They should be a document that you have on hand that you can refer to, because your interview questions are going to be based around the job description. I'm not going to be asking somebody who I want to work in a restaurant whether they can speak Mandarin Chinese unless it's a Mandarin Chinese restaurant. I'm going to be wanting to ask them about their ability to deal with customers, to work under pressure, to work with other people, and most importantly, whether they've ever served food before. An interview is built around a job description. So a job description should be the thing that you are basing a lot of your preparation from, and if you're clever, you can pretty much predict the questions that you're going to be asked. When asked about the specific scheme that you're applying to, first of all, you want to talk about what you would do in the job. What would you be expected to do day to day? Are you going to be working towards a qualification? Are you going to be working with clients, working with yourself? Who is it that you're going to be expected to interact with? And the second part of the answer, which most people seem to have no problems with, is listing out the reasons why you'd be good at the job. Now, I would suggest 2 or 3 really important skills that Lloyds has put down in its job description that you would need, and a single sentence of proof as to why you're good at these things. I've got really good numeracy because I got a silver medal in the International Maths Olympiad, for example. But don't just say that you have the skill, provide proof so that we have evidence of that skill. And if you're struggling with the job description provided for Lloyds, just look for other companies who have a similar job role and you can find a better job description, because they're going to pretty much be the same. Question number 3, why you? Now, a question like this is similar in some respects to tell me about yourself, but again, you're going to want it to be really orientated around the job description. So what did you study? Why is what you studied relevant? What work experience is relevant? What extracurricular activities are relevant? Bearing in mind most things are relevant, particularly when it comes to a graduate job. For example, teamwork is one of those things that you need in all jobs. Resilience, leadership, problem solving, the ability to resolve conflict. These are things that we learn in our everyday lives. So just pick out some examples, starting off with your work experience and then working backwards towards your extracurricular activities that you feel can give a really strong evidence-based approach as to why you're a good fit for the job. Question number 4, how could you jump out of your comfort zone? Now, this is a good example of a strength-based question, but it's something that you can turn into a star answer for a competency-based question. And in fact, you can do this for any strength question. How could you jump out of your comfort zone? I could jump out of my comfort zone by really challenging myself to do something which makes me feel fearful. For example, jumping out of a plane. This reminds me of a time when, and then you can launch into a star-based example when you have pushed yourself out of your comfort zone. Question number 5, what financial news have you read recently? What are the challenges that Lloyds Banking Group faces based upon recent financial news? Now, when picking out financial news, you should make sure that you're trying to pick out microeconomic news. For example, recently in one of my videos, somebody left me a comment asking about how they could effectively summarize a piece of macroeconomic news. For example, interest rates or inflation or a recession. Now, this isn't something that anybody is going to be able to do easily, particularly if you don't have any experience of summarizing financial news. So what I suggest is that you pick a piece of financial news which is microeconomic in nature, i.e. it's based around a singular person, place, company, or event. Now, what are the challenges that are facing Lloyds Banking Group? You can pick out 2 or 3 key economic factors or key things that are happening in the economy, and again, provide an evidence-based approach for how this is going to affect Lloyds Banking Group. Question 6, how do you think climate change affects the bank's investments? Now, this is for a more specific role based around front office, but is certainly a very interesting question. One thing that I suggest that you do is, if you are applying for a front or middle office role, do make sure that you read Lloyds Banking Group annual report. This way, you're going to be able to get intimate knowledge around the individual department that you're going to be applying to. Most of the answers that you have about the bank can be answered in their annual report or in their quarterly financial statements, when you can find out about the performance of the group that you're applying to, the challenges that they're facing, and also the rewards or the wins that they're getting. So for example, talking about something to do with climate change, which is potentially related to ESG type investing, if you dug into Lloyd's annual report, you'd be able to pick out the key themes, topics, and events that are affecting investments within this field. Question number 7, what are your career aspirations? Now, this is a very similar question to where do you see yourself in 5 years? And the way to respond is basically to understand the progression that you would find within an investment bank. Now, you could find this from Glassdoor, in people's questions. You could find this on Student Room or Wikijob or something like Wall Street Oasis or Mergers and Inquisitions. There are plenty of places where you can go to find out what is going to be the career progression. Are you going to be studying for a particular type of qualification? Would you go to work in management? Would you specialize within a particular division or around a particular equity class or investment class? These are all things that you can work out by doing a little bit of homework and reading into the stories of people who have come before you. Question number 8, how do you handle an angry customer? So again, this is a strength-based question, and we can answer this first of all by just answering the case in point. When dealing with an angry customer, first of all, it's really important just to listen and understand the reason for them being angry. Working in a bank, I can imagine that people will get upset because these are issues that involve their money that they've worked really hard for. So the first thing that I tend to do is to listen to their grievances, to understand and reflect that back to them, and then to see what are the next steps to take so that I can find some sort of resolution or solution to their problem. It might be something that I can do myself depending upon the position, or something that I can do by raising with a manager. And then you can launch into a competency style answer into how do you resolve a conflict using a star-based approach. Question number 9, if your teammate had made a mistake, would you correct them or complain to your manager? Now, I don't want to be that guy, but no one likes a snitch. So if a team member has made a mistake, there is a graduated approach to moving towards the issue. So first of all, you would turn around and say, hey Steve, I was just looking through your discounted cash flow model and I noticed that you've used some data which is actually old. There are some more up-to-date numbers. I've actually helped you out by amending this for you or sending you through the new up-to-date numbers just so you're able to get everything corrected for when we do our client presentation. Now, hopefully Steve goes, thanks Mike, that's super helpful of you. I'm going to do that now and go and have a look at it. Maybe Steve resists and says, look, I'm not really sure. Actually, I think the numbers that I've used are correct. So you can have a conversation because, of course, I could be wrong. It may not be Steve that's wrong, it's me that's wrong. There's a particular reason why he's used those figures. Or Steve just goes, yeah, no, I'm not gonna do that, I'm right, and just completely ignores you. In which case, this is potentially a wrong report or wrong piece of information that's gonna go out to the public. Then it's appropriate to bring in a manager and say, hey, Susan, I've tried to speak to Steve, I tried to provide him with a correction, I've tried to have a conversation with him, he's really not receptive. I'm concerned because I'm pretty sure that the information going out is wrong. Can I leave this one with you? Because I don't think I can take it any further. Question 10, how important is trust when building relationships with colleagues or customers? Now this was a similar style of question which came up around the 5 values which we covered earlier. And again, it appears to be a strength-based question. Nothing can happen without trust. That's the reason why we go to shake people's hands. Originally, it was to show that we had no weapons. So trust is absolutely crucial, particularly when it comes to dealing with people's money and their finances. However, building trust comes from consistency in terms of words and actions. So building trust is really just about me being a good colleague, a good employee, or a good advisor to our customers, showing up for them consistently and making sure that I deliver exactly what I say or I exceed their expectations. An example of a time when I built trust was, and then we can launch into an example using the star-based format. Let's talk about how to answer situational questions. Now, situational questions are increasingly more common in video interviews. We first saw them with PwC, but we've seen them with Lloyds, with Deloitte, and with a host of other companies. A situational question is basically a question based around a situation that you could find yourself at work and how you would deal with that situation. Many of you who have done online or psychometric tests will be familiar with SJT ranking style questions, where you either do best worst or you do ranking of options 1 to 5. The difference is now is that you're answering out loud, and it's something that I find a lot of people have struggled with. So much so that about 2 years ago I made a course which is completely based around answering SJTs called SJT Sorted, and that course is now included in a bundle down in the description below for interview success secrets. But today I want to take a moment to explain how to answer these questions, some methods for thinking about it, which are abridged and summarized from that course. There is a framework for answering SJT questions which is super helpful, and it's a 4-step framework to go through. Step 1 All SJT questions are built around a competency, which is a particular skill that is being tested. So in terms of competency, there are 5 skills that I have come across which most SJT questions fall into. Number 1 is cognitive skills. This is about decision making, problem solving, or problems of strategy in terms of thinking what to do. Number 2 is personality, which is being flexible, adaptable, resilient, conscientious, or demonstrating independence. Number 3 is interpersonal skills, so social intelligence, effective communication, relationship building, and the ability to persuade others or to influence them. Number 4 is attitude, being open to criticism, orientated towards success, working under management, or organizational thinking in terms of working amongst a team. And lastly is leadership skills, which is encouraging development of others, teamwork, responsibility, encouraging innovation, maintaining authority, and managing resources, whether they be people, places, or things. Step 2 to think about with a situational question is what's the context? And after I go through the 6 steps, we're going to speak on an example. So number 1, who's involved? Number 2, what do they need? Who gets priority if there's more than one person? What are your responsibilities and obligations? And what is your position and the extent of your authority? And also, what's the wider context just in terms of real life? Now, I want to pause a moment before I go on to step 3 and 4 to choose an example, which I've used from my SJT Sorted course. You have been working on a client's project for some time now. The manager in charge of the project is giving a presentation to the client showing the results of your analysis, findings, and recommendations. While the manager is giving this presentation, you realise there is a mistake in one of the tables you have prepared. Nobody else notices. Who's involved? Well, you, your manager, and the client. What do they need? Your client needs the right information and your manager needs your support. Who gets priority if there was more than one person? Your manager. So why? Because you've spotted a mistake, but right now they're giving a presentation and it would potentially be quite damaging to them and also to the perception of your business. If your son go, Steve, that table, it's wrong, mate. It's wrong. Sorry about that. Sorry, wrong table. Steve, no good. So you wouldn't want to blurt it out in the middle of the meeting. You wouldn't want that to happen to you, right? But it's probably something that does need to address and potentially can be addressed afterwards, potentially. So what are your responsibilities and obligations? To do right by the client and to respect your manager and the company's hierarchy. Is the client always right? No. Is the client the most important thing? No. Actually, the business is the most important thing. And everybody makes mistakes, but there are right ways of going around how to correct those mistakes. So what's your position on authority? You're a graduate, right? You're not more senior than your manager, you're not even on equal terms. So the wider context is, for a general corporate role, you're trying to follow the hierarchy and deliver the best service. It's useful to think about this because often people won't kind of zoom out and think about the general context. So the response to this is, though I understand that there is a mistake in one of the tables, I would wait until the presentation is over. My manager would be standing in front of a client. It would be an important meeting, I'm sure, and my position as a graduate means I am there to observe. Also, I need to double check the information that I believe to be true, because this is something that is happening while a presentation is being given and I may not be privy to all of the information. This is also something that can be corrected later on in an email or a phone call between my manager and the client. But to interrupt my manager during a presentation would not only be embarrassing, it could also potentially damage the relationship that we have with the client. So once the meeting has concluded and I'm traveling back to the office with my manager, this would be the time for me to bring it up and point out the mistake. Hopefully my manager would either be able to rectify the mistake or explain the reason why it isn't a mistake and that there's nothing serious involved, and then we would make sure that we have maintained a good relationship with the client. So step 3 and 4 in terms of situational questions is thinking, what's the best and worst response? What SJT questions are trying to deal with is what is the most effective, considered and potentially altruistic responses that you can give. They're not passive, they're not negative, they're not irrelevant, selfish, hasty, or just careless. They are intelligent, and to a certain extent, which are just some ideas to think about, they are active over passive and they're conservative over risky. Big companies want to know that they are employing somebody who, yes, is smart and brilliant and super talented, but also can adhere to the hierarchy and can do what they're told. There is a time and a place for people to make these types of decisions or comments, and that will come with experience. Some other things to think about is always being positive or being negative, being effective over being logical, the hierarchy of obligation, which is always the organization, the client, the manager, and you. And how would you act in an ideal world if you were being as helpful and as thoughtful and as active as possible? Guys, I hope that you've enjoyed this video. Drop us a like, drop us a comment down below for other videos you'd like us to make, and see you next time. Bye.